Welcome to your new favorite podcast, Breaking Cycles, with your hosts, Erica and Jesus. In this podcast, we'll dive into non-traditional relationships and social and personal challenges they bring. From navigating judgments, jealousy, and disagreements to exploring sexual experiences. We'll be sharing the unique journey of an intercultural couple who's been through it all. Or maybe not everything, maybe not all, but...
No, we're planning to continue going through.
But maybe like by the time we die, we can say we've mastered a lot of things. I don't know. I'm Erica.
And I'm Jesus.
We'll be here with you every Wednesday on all your favorite streaming platforms and YouTube. We're so excited to be launching our first episode. We have also been really nervous to start a podcast because we don't want to affect the people around us, but we want to make this podcast as useful as possible. So we've decided to combine insights from literature and deeply personal and intimate experiences. So we probably will talk a lot about ourselves.
Yeah, I hope you find that interesting. So yeah, let's start with a brief introduction. We're Eric and Jesus. We've been legally married for 6 months.
That's crazy.
Well, just 6 months, but yeah, together.
But legally married, not just married.
Together for 3 years.
Spiritually, we're not married at all.
And we've known each other for other 6. From the very beginning, our relationship has been ethically non-monogamous. The idea to create a podcast or content like this has been with us since the start of our relationship, especially because of the unique perspective and challenges, mostly, we bring as an intercultural couple. We've worked hard to make our relationship thrive, and while we never thought we'd end up legally married, life has a way of surprising you. Now that we're in a beautiful and stable place in our relationship,
because we've had some rocky moments.
Yeah, we decided it was time to share time and build a community of information and support.
Yes.
During our research, we noticed there's already content about ethical non-monogamy out there, but most of it comes from psychologists or interviewers asking questions to experienced individuals. What we didn't see was a space like this, where people share both foundational knowledge and personal stories in a way that feels approachable and relatable. This podcast is grounded in those foundations. We didn't arrive at this point in our relationship on our own. We read, we went to therapy, we argued a lot, we compromised, and sometimes we disagree, for not saying a lot of times.
I think we disagree most times. We agree to disagree.
Yeah. We want to share the information that helped us and how we applied it in our own lives.
Yes. So you also can be a hoe.
Yeah.
An ethical hoe.
An ethical one. Yeah.
For this first series of episodes, we're focusing on a book that's often referred to as the Poly Bible. I think most people I've met who practice ethical non-monogamy.
We put it here somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's here. Well, we obviously really want to credit this book because it has very much so impacted our lives. So we're focusing on the book, The Ethical Slut. And if you're new to this topic, don't worry. We'll start off with a brief introduction to the book and its first chapter to ensure we're all on the same page. We'll also clarify the vocabulary the authors use and the philosophy they promote. Before we dive in, we do want to be upfront with you. We don't claim to have the same depth or knowledge or level of expertise as the authors of this book. However, like them, we believe in the power of sharing experiences. That is why we're here. The power of sharing experiences. By opening up about our journey, the good, the bad, and everything in between, we hope to inspire new ideas, offer tools to help you navigate your own questions, and connect with a community of like-minded people who can support you. And I think if we can do that, then this podcast will be well worth it. Don't you think, babe?
Yes, I do. Quoting, many people dream of having an abundance of love and sex in friendship.
Ooh la la. That sounds...
This is the opening line.
I was just like, that sounds like a fantasy.
And it is. And this is the opening line of The Ethical Slut, a book that reminds us that free love isn't a modern invention. People have been thriving in consensual, non-traditional relationships for centuries.
So the book talks about who is an ethical slut. So who is an ethical slut? An ethical slut is someone who embraces consensual sexual choices and views sexuality as a source of abundance and connection. The authors point out in much of the world, slut is a highly offensive term, a word used to shame women for having an unapologetic or indiscriminate approach to their sexuality. Meanwhile, or commonly, men exhibiting similar behaviors are often celebrated, admired, or even envied, like you're a Casanova. Is that a word in Spanish, like Casanova?
Yeah,
Is that where it comes
Spanish.
from? A house nova. I've never thought about the actual meaning behind Casanova. One of the boldest moves of this book is reclaiming slut as a positive term, one that celebrates any person, regardless of gender, who values and enjoys and honors their sexuality.
First published in 1997.
That's when I was born. Y'all, I'm still kind of a 90s baby.
Already giving information away. Okay,
Back in the
1997.
90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
The Ethical Slut has sold over 200,000 copies and has even been analyzed in academic circles. In a 2001 analysis of sexual politics published in Continuum, the book was praised for breaking away from the typical approaches to sexual liberation seen in the 80s. At that time, much of the focus was on finding scientific proof to validate the movement. However, Easton and Hardy, by the way, the authors of this book, shifted the narrative by emphasizing the fluidity of sexual identities and practices, moving the conversation away from rigid definitions. Their approach aligns with the Michael Foucault's philosophy, which suggests that instead of trying to uncover some true meaning about sexuality, we should view it as a way to explore diverse relationships and connections. This fresh, open-minded perspective helped it redefine what it means to be sexually liberated.
And here's where our questions begin. I'm pretty sure some of you might be thinking, oh, that's great. These guys are just going to rephrase the entire book. But no, that's not what we're trying to do. This book was published 28 years ago. Oh, that is so crazy. It was the same year I was born. Kind of ironic. And while the authors proudly reclaim the term slut as something empowering, how do readers feel about it today? How are the 2025 sluts navigating the complexities of modern society? Especially in 2025. I feel like shit is definitely hitting the fan. Bear with us. It's our, first time doing anything like this.
Go for it.
Yes, ethical sluts exist. We proudly count ourselves among them.
Yes, we are.
Slut.
Yeah.
Sluts unite. But let's be honest, this isn't an easy identity to embrace publicly. Even today, in many places, living an openly non-monogamous life can still bring a lot of judgment, discomfort, and hostility.
Yeah, especially with family and friends and stuff.
Especially with family.
And that's why we're here. We believe that visibility is crucial. By sharing our lives and experiences, we hope to normalize ethical non-monogamy and create a space for others to live authentically. We understand that opening up like this comes with risk, but we also believe that these conversations are necessary to break down stigma and build understanding. As an intercultural couple, we face our own unique set of challenges, from navigating cultural differences to dealing with societal judgment. Our goal is to address these issues with openness and honesty, showing how they've shaped our journey.
If you're listening, we imagine you're a curious person, someone who suspects or maybe already knows that there's more to relationships than the traditional mold. Maybe you've dabbled in ethical non-monogamy, or maybe you're just starting to explore it. Either way, we're here to talk about the possibilities and share the lessons we've learned along the way.
Now let's get personal. We want to share with you who we are, who we used to be, and what we think led us to choose this type of life.
Well, I guess I'll start first.
Yeah.
As you guys must have heard, my name is Erica. I am currently living in Colorado with my beautiful husband. We moved out here for, this one. We moved out here because I decided I wanted to take up aviation, get my pilot's license and other ratings. I love the outdoors. I love fermenting. We have like a huge fermentation station in our house, and my poor husband hates like vinegar. And I feel like it constantly smells like kombucha or fermented food.
Constantly.
But it's so good for your gut.
That's what she says.
I also love cold plunging, yoga. I feel like I'm kind of just a granola girl from Utah. You know?
Yes, she is.
Love the mountains, love animals, love thrifting, all that fun stuff. I grew up deeply Mormon, where my upbringing was very strict. A lot of rules and a lot of expectations, especially around purity and obedience. And I feel like that shaped a lot of my early world and how I saw the world. I was taught that my value as a woman was tied to virtue. And exploring anything outside of that box felt very dangerous, even though from a young age I remember being very naturally curious. From lessons in Young Women's, where we were told that any sexual experience would crumple us like a piece of paper, to the struggle of not being allowed to use something as basic as tampons. Isn't that crazy? I couldn't put a tampon in me because it would make me impure. The narrative was clear. Women's bodies and desires were something to fear, control, and suppress. But as I grew older, those teachings began to feel confining, and I started to ask myself deeper questions about what I believed and wanted. My path has not been straightforward. After ending a long-term relationship, I realized that while I loved that person deeply, I wasn't ready to put an end to discovering new connections, experiences, and parts of myself. That realization led me to explore ethical non-monogamy, which completely shifted how I think about relationships, love, and autonomy. It was both liberating and challenging to unlearn ideas rooted in scarcity and control and replace them with values of abundance, respect, and open communication. By the time I had met Jesus de Veracruz, I had already begun unpacking these layers of my identity, but I was still in the process of learning and growing. He was in Mexico, I was in the US, and at the time, he didn't have a visa to come to the US to visit me. So the idea of a conventional relationship just wasn't on the table for us. From the start, we were so honest with each other about where we were in our lives, what we wanted, and what we could offer. And I feel like that honesty really set up the stage for where we are today. I've learned that the most important part of any relationship, whether it be romantic, platonic, monogamous, or otherwise, is communication. Whether we're navigating the challenges of a long-distance relationship, exploring non-traditional ways of loving, or just trying to figure out what the next chapter looks like, it all comes down to being honest, open, and willing to grow together. So our journey hasn't been perfect, but it's been really very real, very raw. And I think that's what I love the most.
Thank you for sharing. And I'm Jesus. Sorry. Jesus de Veracruz, Mexico. To be completely honest, I've been a slut for quite a while.
But he's my slut now.
The problem here is like, but not always an ethical one. You know, I've made my share.
Not always an ethical one?
Yeah, I haven't been an ethical slut for a good part of my life.
You've been like non-ethically slutty.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear about it.
I've made my share of mistakes in past relationships, and I've hurt people along the way. And by the time those relationships ended, I found myself in a pretty dark place, questioning whether I ever be capable of being in a relationship that I truly respected and nurtured for the long haul. You know, this is the kind of commitment we're thought to aim for the last one that lasts a lifetime. I grew up in a small conservative town in Mexico, also with a strong, well, not Catholic, but, religious influence, where topics like this.
But you did grow up with I think you meant to say not, like you.
With a strong Catholic influence,
But not a Mormon influence.
Not a Mormon.
Yeah.
So yeah, like where topics like this weren't just taboo, they were met with judgment. Anytime I expressed thoughts that went against the norm, especially talking with my friends, about me trying to explore these type of relationships, I'll hear things like, that's trying to be all European. And this is a translation. I don't know why this question became, or the expression became popular in Mexico. Just no te hagas la europea. But yeah, or why do you think you don't deserve someone who respects you? That one is one that I got from one of my best friends when I was explaining him my situation with you. Yeah, this comment stuck with me, making it even harder to figure out who I was or what I wanted. By the time I met Erica, I was dealing with the fallout of my own non-ethical sluttiness. I had disrespected boundaries in a situation involving a friend and someone he was dating. Parties, the regular excuse of alcohol and stuff. Um, and that caused tension in my friendships, obviously. I was also in therapy trying to unpack why I kept sabotaging my relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or even with myself. I wanted to understand if I could ever be a good partner, lover, or friend. When Erica and I started talking, I was still in the thick of figuring all this out. She was in the US and I was in Mexico, so committing to something serious felt unrealistic. Plus, I knew that if I didn't start changing my patterns, I would end up repeating the same mistakes. I remember one of our early conversations where I admitted that I was in a complicated situation. I told her that I couldn't make any promises about the future, and her response, it caught me completely off guard. She said, "Oh, yeah, no worries. We're too far apart for that anyway. Do your thing because I'm doing mine, but I'm totally fine with keeping in touch and seeing each other whenever we can." And that whenever we can ended up being like 6, 7 times that you came to Mexico.
Yeah, Jesus didn't have a visa, and I had taken my little brother down to Puerto Vallarta for his birthday and met Jesus there. And I remember being like, yeah, he's cute, he's handsome. But last day we spent all of the day together in this little beach called Yelapa. Jalapa. There was like whales. It was such a beautiful little town. But he actually proposed to me with a lime peel. Just joking around. And I think I went back to the US and I couldn't stop thinking about you. So that year I probably came to Mexico like every other month to see you.
Every
other month. Like every 4 to 6 weeks. I would come back and serve tables and bartend as much as I could, and then just find the cheapest flight down to Mexico.
And that's how it all started.
That
simple, honest honest exchange set the tone for everything that came after. It gave me the space to grow while allowing us to build something real, something based on respect and understanding. Which, by the way, I think for me,
kitty jumped down.
So yeah, sorry for that.
Can you hear kitty?
Because, for me, as a Mexican, the idea to date someone and not
come here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Come here, kitty.
There you go.
There's the chamaco. Hi, babies.
So,
but for you, the idea of
of dating in Mexico, if you well, I don't think this is a Mexican thing, and I think in many cultures, if you start dating someone, since day one, you need to kind of show you're serious, and by being serious, mean that you're not dating other people.
Oh yeah, no, it's like a lot of people want the full attention.
And I feel that was one of my first questions, as the slut I was. I am. It was
You're a better slut now, though, babe.
Yeah, but the idea in my head was like, why I'm going to promise, all these loyalty and exclusivity to someone that I still don't know.
Yeah.
And are those the type of thoughts that brought us here. And now that you have a better understanding of who we are, we're making an effort to address some of the questions that at one point or another were real questions we had about each other. These questions helped us figure out if we could find common ground and make this lifestyle work for us. So I have some questions for you, Erica.
Ask away.
So you mentioned, and I'm also trying to think about all the viewers, because I mean, I was totally ignorant about the Mormon culture, and that's why I also want to. I was making this question to give some context to the people, and because you mentioned young woman earlier.
Oh yeah.
For those who aren't familiar, could you explain what it is and how it shaped your early understanding of relationships and sexuality?
Yeah. So Young Women's is a program designed in the Mormon Church from ages 12 to 18. And it's all focused on spiritual, social, personal development. There's a lot of like activities, but it definitely, like all the activities always emphasize faith, integrity, virtue, and good works. Like for the most part, I actually really loved Young Women's because I think we did a lot of outreach, service, definitely some like amazing leaders as I was more when I was Mormon growing up. But there was also like now that I'm thinking back on it, there was like a lot of the program was rooted in like in purity culture of like stressing like chastity before marriage, emphasizing that spiritual and moral consequences of sexual behavior. Modesty was also a major focus. So like you were never allowed to show like shoulders, knees, like anything like on your chest or like collarbones. And I remember like one of the lessons, they had a piece of paper and they were like, this is you before you ever kiss a boy or even touch a boy or let a boy touch you. And then they crumpled up the piece of paper and unfolded it. And they're like, this is you after like you kiss a boy or you spend time with a boy. And especially the emphasis on modesty. I thought it like our biggest, they would teach us like, you are going to tempt men if you're dressing like a certain way, which I feel like pretty much is really controlling and deeply problematic because it places a responsibility for controlling male thoughts and actions on young women and girls, which I think is really harmful. And also suggested that if a man or boy acted inappropriately, the fault could partially lie with like how the girl dressed or anyways. So that whole mindset just like fosters victim blaming and absolves men of accountability for their own behavior. Obviously, this is a whole other conversation, but just one of the things I realized. I think it also perpetuated the idea that a woman's body is inherently dangerous and shameful, something that needs to be hidden for her to maintain her virtue. I feel like for me, this honestly has created these like long lasting feelings of like guilt around like sexuality or like feeling discomfort like around expressing myself, which is something I'm actually currently still working through, obviously. I think I've gotten a lot better over the years. But now I'm just trying to foster a healthy, empowering relationship with myself. Anyways, but as I've grown, I've learned to unlearn these toxic ideas and embrace a perspective and see that sees everyone as fully responsible for their own actions. I now believe that modesty in all my personal choices should come from self-expression and respect for oneself, not not out of fear for how others might receive or react. Shifting that perspective has really been liberating and has allowed me to build relationships rooted in equality, respect, and shared responsibility.
Great.
Wow, sorry. I feel like I just like word vomited that.
No, that's good.
I'll get better at these, I promise.
We will. We will. You know, I have originally put all the questions for you. I think it would be nice if we make like one.
Yeah, I think that'd be really nice. So you mentioned, Jesus, being in therapy and working through past mistakes before meeting me. How did that journey help you redefine what it means to approach relationships ethically? And how has that changed over time as we've grown together?
Well, I remember that therapy was the first time I realized I was dealing with something new in general. Because I remember telling my therapist, like, hey, maybe, I'm just not made for this. Maybe I should explore other types of relationships. And he responds, didn't lean into that idea. I don't know whether because he wasn't familiar with non monogamy or thought I was still focused on figuring out traditional relationships. Like he was trying to make me come back to the pad. I don't know.
We were talking about technical difficulty.
Yeah. First episode.
First episode, we're trying to figure this all out. We were talking about how your therapist would ask you to write things down.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like writing down, journal my emotions when interacting with women, what I was feeling, what I wanted to get from that interaction, and so on. And I was really like challenged by it. Like,
So did you just stop dating completely?
no, I just started getting involved emotionally, meaning to sexual interactions.
Wait, you said that backwards. You stopped getting involved eventually.
And just
Just pure sexual interactions.
yeah, as soon as I was feeling there was something happening, I was like, yeah, no, I can't do it.
Oh, you would just step away. You were like, nope, no thank you.
But honestly, I was still repeating old patterns. I got involved with someone who was connected to a friend, which created tension a bit more than that. And then, not long after that, I started talking to you. And at that point, I hadn't read anything about a relationship. I was the same slut, somehow when I was about you. And I wanted to see where things could go. And it was until we talked about our long distance situation that you said, don't worry, let's live our lives and figure it out as we go. But something shifted because that honesty gave it the space to reflect without feeling trapped or pressured. Now I feel like, oh, okay, I can just tell you
That you're hanging out with.
yeah, like, hey, yeah, I'm going out with this girl. And you kind of told me the same thing and at the time. And the truth is, I always struggle to take time for myself to process and grow. I tend to just keep going, meaning, one relationship after another.
Right.
And it's not a healthy approach. And it has definitely led me to questionable decisions of the past. But when we started building our relationship, I promised myself one thing, to be fully honest. Time. It hasn't been easy. There have been darker moments, and I'm sure we'll talk about them in this podcast. But my commitment to transparency, is still a work in progress, though it's still a work in process, has allowed me to give you those to trust, understand, and truly know me. For the first time in my life, I feel like there's no version of me that exists behind this relationship. No one. Like I have friendships like that have almost your age. I have friends from 25 years ago, and no one knows me better than you do. And that's something that I value deeply, and I feel that that's one of the strongest enablers in this relationship. But okay, coming back to you, you said that as you grew older, those teachings started to feel confining, and you began asking deeper questions about what you believe about one.
Mm-hmm.
When did you think that shift started to happen? And what factors in your life made you start questioning those beliefs? We want to know how this little Mormon girl, beautiful slut.
I don't think you've ever referred to your life as a beautiful slut.
Yeah, it's the first time I do that, but
I like it.
there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
I have to tell them. Jesus likes to make the bed like a Mexican mom and like beats the shit out of it with the top sheet.
How's that related to this?
Because Jesus had me make the bed sometimes. Honestly, he's a lot better at making the bed. But I did not make the bed how he makes the bed. I just put the sheets back up. And when he went to go get into bed later that night, he found a sock. So what did you call me?
naughty.
No, what did you call me?
Yeah, like naughty, like a naughty girl or something like.
No, nothing else.
Well, we're trying to be efficient with this podcast, but yeah, like those are words that I don't really.
That's the only time he's ever
Yeah, I think it's. I told you, I called you naughty girl.
nasty.
Nasty girl. Yeah,
It's like nasty girl. And I was just like anyways. Honestly, I think that I was just so surprised.
yeah, it was.
I think shift happened for me in my teens, early 20s. I think it was the combination of growing independent. Like I moved out of the house fairly early and kind of was on my own from a young age. And I wasn't being exposed as much to Mormonism. Like I'd stopped going to church. I was working a lot. I got a house with like some friends who also weren't Mormon. And I think I just started to see like this whole other world around me. I think the biggest factor was me actually leaving Utah at 18 and moving to Seattle, where you kind of just like leave this Mormon bubble. If any of you are from Utah or grew up Mormon and have been to Utah, then you totally know what I mean. For a long time, I accepted what I was taught without much question. But as I got older, I started noticing how those teachings felt limiting, especially around my sexuality, because from a pretty young age, I realized that I like women and men. But in Mormonism, that's a sin. And also the emphasis on modesty, purity, and gender roles just didn't align with the way I was beginning to see myself in the world. I felt like my worth was tied to how well I could conform to these ideas, which didn't leave much room for authenticity or individuality. Probably over time, like just hanging around people who weren't Mormon and like seeing how other people were so happy and honestly just really good people, except but they weren't Mormon or religious. I think those people and those circumstances really made me question, like, what do I truly think about relationships and sexuality? What kind of life relationships will make me feel fulfilled and authentic? And honestly, that process wasn't easy. And I think it's also like this continuous question of sitting down with yourself and asking what you want and like who you are. Because I feel like every month we adapt and change into like a different being or like a different, even every day. Like I think every idea or every story or connection you share or experience, it shifts you, it changes you. So I think it's really important to always like tap in and ask yourself. So yeah, did that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, let's go back to another question that I have for you. So you also grew up in a conservative town, also a pretty religious conservative environment in Mexico. How did societal norms about relationships and sexuality shape your views early on? And what was the most challenging part of unlearning those lessons to embrace ethical non-monogamy?
Well, yeah. So growing up in a conservative town in Mexico meant that everything about relationships and sexuality was rooted in monogamy and tied to religious ethics and more. Honestly, I think this is true for much of Mexico and these societies worldwide. But even in cultures considered more open, media down. Yeah, sorry. Even in cultures considered more open, like even like the US, everything like media, politics, and public representations are still overwhelmingly traditional. Seeing actors, like in politicians, they're always like, no, husband, why? Like,
There's actually like I was really surprised to learn this, but Will Smith?
yeah.
I thought in this one I practice ethical non-monogamy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
There's a whole case that's why he aren't this, Chris Rock and also.
I would even know that was why.
Well, not it's not specifically for that, but
Yeah.
they had been, they have expressed Your challenges. Oh my God, again, Amber.
Yeah, again,
Okay, this
we'll
is-
be better for the second episode. We swear.
But like all the times we haven't clapped, it's going to be a pain.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you know, you don't see, well, overall, okay, we just talk about Will Smith, but that was like what, one case?
Also, no, but I
And-
feel like now it's people are becoming more comfortable to come out and talk about it. Like Jelly Roll.
Yeah, but well, I
And
was
Bunny.
trying to say how we didn't grow up with this, you know, we didn't
Oh,
grow
yeah.
up seeing this. And even though they have expressed their the experiences, I feel that there's not really big you know, they haven't say anything like, oh yeah, because my wife has a boyfriend or stuff like that, you
Oh,
know.
no.
It's always just
Very
maybe
secretive.
slightly mentioning
Mhm.
issues, whatever. But yeah, it's all about projecting monogamous ideal. And one of the most eye-opening conversations I had about this was at a party during my last days in Mexico, because I was talking to a friend that I haven't seen for a while, and about how I was exploring this lifestyle, you know. And at first, I could see his face saying like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, what do you mean that you can date women and now like tonight your girlfriend, almost wife, is dating another guy, you know?" And but as the conversation went on, and explained how the risks of monogamy, like cheating, are just so normalized in our culture, you know, especially from the time I am from, you know, where a lot of people cheat on in each other,
Yeah.
and everyone knows about it. We just, you know, don't say anything.
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like it's so normalized everywhere. Like some of my college friends would be in these long-term relationships, but when their boyfriend or girlfriend were out of town, like something would happen. And I was always like, well, is it my responsibility to, like, I don't want to, it's like, it's your relationship, but it was really sad.
So yeah, in my town, it felt pointless to have a monogamous relationship when everyone knew that I was this flirty guy who would likely cheat. You know, like people would gossip, and even you remember that we were dating, and I wanted to hang out with girls, but the idea to say to a girl like, "Hey, I have a girlfriend, but I can date, and would you like to go out with me?" You know, the idea to go out to have dinner with me with someone that publicly is known for having this girlfriend, blah, 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 you know, they are not comfortable with that. And people talk, but they're the same people, you know, who like to uh, just again, sorry to come back to the that maybe some other monogamous couple, you know, will cheat each other, but then the next day will be, you know, at church and, you know, having a Sunday family with all this society presenting everything is fine. And I was like, you know, what's the point of all that if I'm just trying to do the same, but honest, you know, you can be, I'm again like I'm a slut, and but I don't have a problem. My wife, well, at the point, girlfriend doesn't have a problem at the time.
Yeah.
So again, to me, that fake life was more dishonest than openly embracing a different relationship model.
Yeah.
And unlearning those societal norms meant rejecting the need to pretend both for myself and in my relationship.
Mhm.
It was about accepting who I was, flaws and all, and building a life based on honesty, not appearances.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I
sort of
I feel
what
like
it
so
was.
many relationships are so superficial. Like it's all to show face.
Right.
But then behind closed doors, like people are fighting or
Yeah.
there's conflict, or, you know, there's the whole theory that the couples who post most on Instagram and like are always like,
happiness and stuff.
yeah, it's like they actually are like usually the most unhealthy or unhappy couples.
And
But who knows?
who knows?
I mean,
Who knows?
I don't post on Instagram as much as I should.
Yeah. So, last question for you. At the beginning of your description, you mentioned that you've always been naturally curious, especially
Yes.
when it comes to relationships and sexuality. How would you describe that curiosity And what kinds of questions or ideas were on your mind during that time?
Oh, that's a really good one. I feel like, I mean, maybe it's normal for kids to just kind of be curious about sex. I don't know. Were you ever curious about sex
I
as a
was
kid?
super curious
Like,
about
it's
sex.
just like a very like normal human thing. But,
Mhm.
I remember like as a young kid, you were ever like any type of masturbation was clearly like bad, like of the devil, dirty thoughts, like
Mhm.
self-soothing, pleasuring. Um, but I remember like I was exploring like myself from a very young age. And I remember it being like, but that feels so good and I feel so natural. Like
Right.
I almost felt guilty because I felt so good about it, but
Mhm.
apparently it was like something so bad. Um,
Yeah.
which yeah, really crazy. Um, but sorry, I'm like have to reread the question. um, yeah, like I think I just throughout like middle school, I kind of went boy crazy per se, even though like boy crazy, I couldn't do anything because my parents were so strict.
Mhm.
But like even like I think it was like holding hands and or I'd like have crushes on girls in my classes, but I couldn't do anything. But
Right.
I don't know. I just was always like so fascinated by it. Like
Mhm.
I just from a young age, I thought bodies were beautiful, like both men and women. I thought like when people
Right.
love each other and they're able to connect, like that's just like the coolest thing in the world.
Mhm.
And I think maybe a part of it also came from like craving love and attention that I didn't have. Like
Mhm.
I definitely have some abandonment issues as a child. I like grew up raising myself like a lot of the years. So maybe it stemmed from that. But yeah, I mean, even now, even though like I have like that love and like nourishment and a healthy relationship, like I'm still so curious about the world and bodies and
Right.
sexuality. And I want to like be better educated and more ethical about it.
Right.
So here we are.
Sounds good.
Should I ask you your last question?
Yes.
In the book, the term slut is reclaimed as a positive and empowering identity. How has your understanding of that word changed, and what does an ethical slut mean to you personally in our relationship?
Uh, yeah, I remember this conversation we had while dating. We both said something like, no matter how much I care for you, you're not the last person I want to have sex with.
And that is still
And
true today. Like
yeah,
I love this person so much, but I don't want you to be the last person I like.
yeah, no, I love people. I like
Yeah.
people and I desire people, and that moment felt so freeing to me. We weren't making impossible promises or
Yeah.
pretending we could predict our future feelings or desires. Like, I don't know how monogamous people promise that they won't desire anyone for the rest of their, we cannot say, I think we can say, we can swear, but like with there, it's like we're what, like, let's say average, you get into this type of relationship at 30. You want me to promise you like 50 years of suppressing my sexual desires? I don't know. I don't feel that's love in any way. And to me, being an ethical slut is about radical honesty and transparency.
Right.
Yeah, to me, being an ethical slut is about radical honesty and transparency. It's about saying, this is who I am. I'm giving you the tools to decide if you want to share your life with me.
Mm-hmm.
Monogamy often expects people to promise things they can't guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be the only person I ever desire, or I'll never change how I feel. Those promises feel dishonest because they deny the complexity of human emotions and desires. Being a
Mm-hmm.
slut, to me, Jesus, means being the most authentic version of myself, not hiding behind societal expectations, but trying to fit into a mold. And being an ethical slut means doing all of this with respect, communication, and a commitment to the people I love, starting with you.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind.
So that was a round of questions. And today we've explored the concept of an ethical slut, someone who embraces consensual sexual choices and views sexuality as abundant and empowering.
As we shared, both of us have had a unique journey in redefining relationships and unlearning the societal expectations we grew up with. It hasn't been a perfect path, but it's been an honest one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what matters most.
We understand that this idea might be new or even challenging for some of you, and that's totally okay. The goal of this podcast is to open up these conversations and create a space where we can all learn, share, and grow together.
Next week, we'll dive deeper into the book and explore myths and realities about this lifestyle. We'll discuss the main challenges the authors highlight and share some of the obstacles we've faced as a couple.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Whether you're exploring ethical non-monogamy for the first time or have been on this journey for a while, what does being an ethical slut mean to you in your relationships? Feel free to share your thoughts with us on social media or in the comments.
And don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and follow us on your favorite platform. We're so excited to start this journey with you guys.
Yes.
And we'll see you next Wednesday.
See you next Wednesday.
Wednesday. Miércoles también vamos a tener un podcast en español.
En español. Aquí abajo el link en la descripción.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, guys. See you.
Bye.